The clang of stars remember living silver against void-tempered steel echoes through the bloodstorm of Isstvan v. Ferrus Manus' gauntlet, sheathed in a Cernoth's breath, severs a traitor's spine in a single stroke. Seals not his Ferrus soul the warp's depths. What if the Primarch's fall was not an end, but a noose tightened around the enemy's throat, the silver the blades, the clang of stars remember? What if Ferrus Manus' betrayal was not a collapse but a lock? The drop site massacre shattered the Iron Hands, yet in that fire a prison formed. The Emperor's silence was no failure, it was a cipher. Ferrus, unyielding even in fevered dissent, became the anvil for a weapon the Adeptus Mechanicus cannot name. His final gambit to turn his own legion's rage into a chain around the Eye of Terror. The warp recoils where his armor lies, a quiet storm, the cost. A Primarch's soul, the Emperor's unspoken debt. What if the greatest heresy was not his fall but the price the stars demand for his sacrifice? What else is the Emperor asking to blade? The forges of Moloch roared like dying stars. Ferrus Manus stood in the furnace's breath, his arms aching with the weight of a Cernoth's silver venom that did not flow but clung, a second skeleton beneath his armor. The serpent's last scream still echoed in his skull, a sound like shattering crystal. The Iron Hands watched in silence, their faces half-lit by the molten rivers that carved the world's spine. None spoke of the cold that seeped from Ferrus' sleeves, how it froze the steam in the air to needles of frost. Years later, that same silver would gleam in the warp's maw. At Isstvan, as the traitor's blades fell, Ferrus let his blood mix with a Cernoth's curse. The silver the warp taint, atom by atom, turning his body into a tomb. His warriors did not see the sigils blazing under his paltry, the way the stars themselves seemed to dim as he channeled the forge's fire into the void. He knew the cost. In the moments before the knife found his heart, Ferrus remembered Moloch's furnace and the smell of burnt ozone when a Cernoth died. A trap forged in youth sprung in death. The Emperor did not speak, no god could have. The stars demand blood and Ferrus was their ledger. What price remains when the sacrifice is both penitent and pen? Ferrus Manus forged legends in the crucible of war. His fist shattered worlds, his code reshaped armies. The Iron Hands did not merely conquer the sterilized heresy with surgical precision. The Emperor watched silent as Ferrus carved order from the galaxy's rot. Was it faith the Primarch offered, or a mirror? His perfectionism was a blade aimed as much at the self as the foe. The Mechanicus, ever the scribes of his madness, recorded his rituals, every weapon blessed with paranoiac rigor, every legionary's implants recast until they functioned like clockwork. The Emperor's trust grew. So did his unease. At Isstvan, Ferrus stood with the traitors, yet his gaze pierced deeper than Horus' lies. The stars had whispered their price. He knew the warp's hunger could not be sated by loyalty alone. His betrayal was a key turned in a lock the Emperor could not name. As the poison spread through the fleet, Ferrus' hands moved not to kill, but to isolate. He positioned the Iron Hands at the storm's eye, where reality thinned. There he became both anchor and sacrifice. His death, swift and absolute, collapsed the breach before it could widen. The Emperor's silence endured. Ferrus' final act was never a failure. It was a theorem proved in blood, that some wars are fought not with swords but with absence. The stars still burn, the ledger is closed. What weapon remains when the god sacrifices himself to become the shield? The chains of Ferrus Manus snap, Fulgrim's blade arcs, a crescent of treachery. The Iron Hands watch their Primarch's head roll cold, metallic, final. Beneath the dropship's blood-soaked hull, Ferrus crumples. Not in defeat, in purpose. His armor, a hollow sarcophagus, hums with buried fury. The Mechanicus device thrums, a buried dirge. He feels it tear his soul, raw and ravenous, as the warp's maw gnaws at his essence. A lifetime of iron discipline cannot steel him against this slow unmaking. His breath hitches, a whisper not of pain but resolve. Asterisk, let the enemy think this a victory. Asterisk, the device flares, not to kill but to bind. Ferrus' blood becomes a lock, his death a key. The warp recoils, its currents twisting into a knot Fulgrim cannot untie. The Iron Hands screams fade, the traitor legions march. But in the void, something fractures, a fissure sealed with the price of a god's sacrifice. Fulgrim grins, savoring his prize. He does not see the shadow Ferrus casts across the immaterium, a noose tightening on the enemy's throat. The Iron Hands survive, barely. Their Primarch's name becomes a scar, a legend of betrayal. They do not know the truth. Their brother's head lies not in a traitor's trophy case, but in the heart of a trap that starves the warp of its prey. Ferrus' voice never echoes from the Emperor's lips, but his choice echoes in every battle, every soul spared the enemy's touch. What is a Primarch without his body? A monument. What is a monument without its meaning? A lie. Ferrus Manus is both. His death is no end, it is a door. And the warp waits patient for the lock to rust. But to understand what happens next, you must understand what Ferrus gave up. His blade, plunged into his own heart, sealed the rift, its hilt still warm from the Emperor's unspoken trust. The ship's cold air reeked of burnt metal, blood, and ozone. Ferrus smiled a spark in the dark as his last breath hissed through gritted teeth. The silence is a shield, he thought. The warp swallowed his scream. The pyre's glow is blue, cold as a forge's heart. Iron Hands recruits, their faces streaked with soot, watch their chaplains burn. The air reeks of seared ceramite. One boy sobs, his power sword too heavy in his hands. We are the Emperor's hammer, he had recited. Now the hammer is rust. Farther off, the drop site massacre grinds on. Gunfire echoes through the valleys of Isstvan. A scout's scream cuts shores, been gutted by a shadow with too many teeth. The ground tastes of blood and ash. The Mechanicus salvagers who came to salvage data now crawl through the ruins, their robes soaked in filth. One tech priest clutches a shard of Ferrus armor. It hums faintly. A trap, he thinks, he knew, his servo skull flickers. The sound is a whisper in static, wait. The archives beneath the planet's equator are colder. Terminals blink in the dark. A Custod's automaton stands vigil over a sealed data stone. Its optical lens cracks. Inside the stone, a sigil pulses a star map Ferrus etched with his dying mind. The Emperor's silence is a thread stretched tight between two voids. A chaplain moments from death gasps. His armor leaks fluid black with the warp. He sold his soul to buy us time. He realizes, not treason, sacrifice. The trap is not in the stone, it is in the silence. The Imperium mourns, the Mechanicus buries secrets, the warp thickens. Ferrus' scream never left the dark. The void claimed his body, his name did not. In the shattered hulls of Isstvan, Mechanicus scavengers unearthed a cipher-silvered bone fused with star stuff, a relic, a riddle. Ferrus had not fallen, he had become the fall. The serpent Acernoth, slain in youth, had given him arms that bled starlight. Those arms, now fused to the warp's core, grew roots in the immaterium. The Emperor's silence was no abandonment, it was the final command. Ferrus was the anvil. The enemy was the hammer, every strike only forged him sharper. The Imperium calls him traitor, the Mechanicus calls him broken, both are wrong. His silver sinews coiled like chains around the warp's ruptures. Where chaos seeped, his essence burned, not to destroy, to bind. A living seal forged in the crucible of his own death. What if the scream in the dark was not pain? What if it was a song? A hymn to those who would follow, sons of iron, bound by oaths no flesh could hold. The Emperor spoke no words. He gave Ferrus a role no brother could play, the sacrifice that works. The Iron Hands do not know their Primarch's arms now cleave the void. They do not feel the tremor as reality's threads are knotted tighter. The Mechanicus deciphers too late. The silver is not armor, it is a prison. And Ferrus within it is not dead, he is the wound that heals. The warp writhes, the stars hold, the silence between them is his oath. A martyr's vow written in star blood and unspoken. The Imperium marches onward, blind to the weapon it carries, blind to the Primarch who became a shield, not of steel. Of time, resolution is not an end, it is a door, and Ferrus Manus stands at its threshold, arms outstretched waiting for the storm that will never come. The Iron Hands march still, their war machines scar the stars, their oaths unbroken, yet in the void between battles, a silence humps a prison built by bone and will. Ferrus Manus lies entombed in the scouring shadow, his betrayal at Isstvan a keystone, not a failure. The Codex Astartes, forged in that crucible, is his echo. Its laws purge heresy, but deeper they chain a wound in reality. The Emperor's silence endures. Does he forget or wait? The Mechanicus dig for answers in static and scripture, blind to the trap coiled beneath their hymns. What is sealed in the warp's depths? Not just souls, but a door Ferrus did not open. His final gambit was not to D but to become the wall. The Iron Hands fight onward, their Primarchs name a fading star. Yet his iron heart still beats in the Emperor's absence, a metronome for the storm that sleeps. And when the enemy turns, it finds a cage with no key, only the weight of a Primarch's oath, still holding. Ferrus' blade did not falter, Horus did. Where the Warmaster carved his name into the Emperor's heart, Ferrus buried his in the soil of Isstvan, act a shadow of the other. The Primarch's death was no accident. The Iron Hand's final charge sealed a rift in the warp, a wound sutured with his own essence. The Emperor spoke not a word. His silence, the Imperium's original sin, hung like ash in the void. Ferrus knew the cost of hubris. He became its antithesis. While Horus reached for godhood, Ferrus became its anvil. His betrayal a ruse to bind the chaos that seeped from the massacre. The storm of the damned roared. Ferrus' oath held, the trap waited. The enemy, blind to the Primarch's design, fed on the false triumph, unaware the cage was not for them but for the Emperor's will. A will as unyielding as iron. As the stars dimmed, Ferrus' name faded, yet his fist remained clenched in the warp's maw. A fist that would not unclench until the storm was still, until the price of defiance was paid in full, until the mirror cracked. And what waits when the mirror cracks? That is the question the dead cannot answer. Only the iron can, only the silence. A snare stars in a silence, mirror cracks. What waits? Not oblivion, a gambit. Ferrus Manus' arms, encased in a Cernoth's living silver, remain unyielding. The star serpent's breath still sears the warp's maw. His final strike at Isstvan was no betrayal, a snare forged in silence. The silver eats into his sinew, a prison for the heresy he could not slay. The Emperor's shadow knows no gratitude. The Imperium walks on, blind to the chains on its savior. Few remember the price, fewer dare to name it. The arms stay, the silence deepens. And in that silence the enemy festers, bound but not broken, not yet. What would Ferrus whisper to the Emperor now? The cost of that silence still seals the breach. Magnus burned Prospero, thinking to claim the heresy for himself, but fire reveals. The 1,000 suns fled to the eye, unknowingly dragging their curse into the trap Ferrus bled to forge. Did he bargain with shadows, or was this always the design? The red